Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. You can tell we're in the thick of the holiday release schedule because, what do you know, it's another new release review episode. This week, it's one you know I've been excited for, Sonic X Shadow Generations. During the main segment, I'll be giving my full review of this remaster that adds a completely new campaign. But first, we have some news to get into. And then on the tail end of the show, we will also be talking about our favorite Sonic levels and celebrating a couple of longtime iconic anniversaries. Joining me for all that is my good friend and Sonic fan extraordinaire, Dr. Ben Richlin. Ben, how are you doing?
Oh, what an intro. Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. Brian, you and I are very sick. We are sick individuals. We are not well individuals. Look at
Why?
us.
Because we love Sonic so much and because we're wearing almost matching Hawaiian shirts?
Because we look like we're going to a Sonic-themed Jimmy Buffett concert. Like, it's just, there's nothing well about us.
Have you ever seen that Instagram account, There I Ruined It, where the person takes like AI and makes like covers of songs using that person's voice in AI? Like they'll do like, I don't know, like an example would be like Johnny Cash singing like Smash Mouth's All Star or something like that.
No.
Now I want like Live and Learn performed by Jimmy Buffett.
Okay. All right.
So for audio listeners, which is the vast majority of people, Ben and I are wearing not matching, but from the same series, Sonic Hawaiian shirts. They're from the
same location.
The Sonic Speed Cafe out in San Diego is where these came from. I think they're exclusive to that location.
Yep.
And you got one from a friend.
Yes.
And then I got one when I went to visit it back in, I guess it was late August, early September, whenever I was out there for that GameSpot.
It was, you were there in September.
Okay, it was early September then.
Because I eventually received a t-shirt that seemed to have traveled the entire tri-state area due to the USPS ineptitude. Which was a
USPS.
Shadow t-shirt. Yes.
Yeah. I wanted the other Shadow t-shirt so badly. It was just a picture of Shadow on the front.
Yeah,
and instead of saying Shadow, it just said San Diego for some reason. I loved it so much. It was so random looking. And I wanted it so bad. But then I asked the woman, I was like, oh, do you have this one? And she was like, oh, that was exclusive to San Diego Comic-Con. So I get it. But at the same time, I was like, that is the shirt that I desperately want. I want a Shadow the Hedgehog shirt that doesn't say Shadow the Hedgehog. It says San Diego.
Well, I've got underneath.
Oh, you got the Shadow the Hedgehog
logo. So this is actually the shirt that was sold only at Tokyo Game Show.
Oh, nice.
And my friend Jack Botnick was there, and he picked up a few things. He picked up this. He picked up a Sonic in Mount Fuji pillow.
That is sick.
It's almost as sick as this franchise. Look at this world that we are in. You know, we got Sonic plushies. We got Sonic whatever. I got my Sonic guitar that I schlepped over here because prop comedy is fun, but also expensive. But, you know, this blue hedgehog brings people together. For better or worse.
It brought us together.
It brought us together.
And we are going to be talking a lot of Sonic later on in the show, but we've got a ton of news to get to before we dive in to the game that we have come together to talk about, Ben.
Yes.
There's a man, maybe you've heard of him, by the name of Masahiro Sakurai. If you're not sure who he is the creator of Kirby and the creator and director of every single Super Smash Bros. Game. And after he wrapped up work on the DLC for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which, by the way, I looked this up, Sora, the final DLC character for Smash Ultimate, came out in 2021. How is that real?
That was crazy. Like, that sounds forever ago, but it seems like yesterday.
It really does. Like, I remember watching the reactions and everything and people freaking out because I'm not a big Kingdom Hearts guy.
No, me neither.
However, I know it's out there.
Tim Geddes and Blessing freaked out from Kind of Funny.
And everybody freaked out.
Yeah, you just see like the little like Mickey Mouse logo and everybody just goes ballistic. Mm-hmm. And like I tried playing Kingdom Hearts and I have like one of the collections. Couldn't really get into it. I might pick it up again. I don't know. We'll see.
I tried Kingdom Hearts 1 back in the day because I'm a big Final Fantasy X person, and I know that Tidus and Waka are in the beginning of that. And I just bounced off it immediately back on PS2.
Yeah.
And then I tried Kingdom Hearts 3 when that came out a few years back, and I was like, this is better, but I'm still not feeling it.
I was going to Disney like in 2017, and so I was like, you know what? Let me pick up Kingdom Hearts. Let me watch all the Disney movies. It's been a while. Blah blah blah. I did like maybe 3 of those things. Like none of those things I really got into, and like I couldn't really get into Kingdom Hearts 1. Doesn't mean I won't, but anyway, Masahiro Sakurai.
Yes, so he started a YouTube channel after he released all the DLC for Smash Ultimate, and he was breaking down how he designs games. He was talking about like video games that he loves playing, like he loves the Persona franchise.
Wow. Yeah.
And he even dedicated an episode to his former mentor, the late Satoru Iwata.
Yes.
So his most recent episode is the final episode of his YouTube channel, he said, or at least of this series. And then he's not going to be putting out any more YouTube. He's been doing this series for like 2.5 years. And in this episode, he started off, he was like, you may realize that I look a little bit older than I looked in the other episodes. And that's because I recorded this entire series 2.5 years ago.
That's insane.
No. And he's like, I've been putting out these episodes piecemeal. And the reason he's been doing that is because he's been working on his proposal for his next game. And he revealed, like, he is in fact working on something. He didn't say anything about what it is, no indication on what that game will be.
No,
so I don't know if it's going to be another Super Smash Brothers game or what. But if I had to bet, like based on the way he's talked about Smash, he probably doesn't want it to be Smash Brothers.
No.
But I think Nintendo would want it to be Smash Brothers. So we'll see where they land on that.
Yeah. What about Kid Icarus?
That's the other thing, right? Like, so he's the creator of Kirby.
Yeah.
He's the creator and longtime director of Smash Brothers. And he directed Kid Icarus Uprising, which was the 3DS game.
Yes.
So he has a lot of love for all of those characters. So I think it could go any direction. But here's the other thing that he revealed during this video. He revealed that he spent a whopping 90 million yen on this YouTube channel, which equates to about $600,000 US.
That's
of his own money.
That's more than my loans. That's more than my medical school loans. That's insane.
Not only that, but he didn't monetize it because he wanted this to be his personal investment and personal gift to the future of the games industry and making it so more people, both developers and fans, can understand how video games are made.
I really wish that he did keep on doing these YouTube series or start a new one about just being the world's greatest negotiator. Like, because he accomplished just so many different things to pull off everything that we saw in Smash. What sort of game would you want to see from him?
I mean, ultimately, the game of his that I've enjoyed the most has been Smash Brothers. So I would like, I mean, if it's going to be something he has worked on in the past, like be it Kirby, be it Kid Icarus, or be it Smash Brothers, I think I'd probably choose Smash Brothers. He puts such an unrivaled level of care and attention to detail in the games that he makes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I want to see something new.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something that he could do where he's leveraging his expertise and knowledge over this vast roster of characters, but maybe like a Smash game in a different genre, not fighting. Like, sure. It doesn't have to be called Smash Brothers either. It could be something, not Mario Kart, but like a genre that is not something he's worked on in the past. It could even be like an action game where you choose one of these characters from this giant crossover franchise and you go through these action stages. We already saw it with the Subspace Emissary. They're like, hey, you can do that, but like tighten it up, make it a really like stylish action game that feels really responsive.
Yeah.
And, doesn't control like a platform fighter trying to squeeze into an action platformer. Make it an actual action platformer, but use and leverage all of your knowledge that you have of these characters that you have developed intimately over the course of your career since the N64 days, and make something really unique and really cool and an absolute love letter to all these different characters.
But then you are leaning heavily into the crossover idea then.
That would be my pick. But again, like, I would love to see him just do something that he finds creatively stimulating, because he has been working on this same franchise for over 25 years now.
Yeah.
And he's taken like breaks and gone and developed other games as well. But like, I'm sure there's like, when we did like the rapid fire interviews for some of these like longtime creators, like you saw it in the Takashi Iizuka one,
Yes.
where I asked him, what's the longest you've gone without thinking of Sonic since you started working on Sonic? And he's like, maybe like a day. and like we asked Ed Boon that same question, who's the co-creator of Mortal Kombat and has worked on it since he co-created alongside John Tobias.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe a few hours.
Yeah, like I would want, probably personally, to see if we are getting a new Nintendo console next year. We are. I would want to see a new IP attached to that. And I would want to see that IP be attached to somebody as legendary as him. Yeah. And I would want to see it take off. That's what I would want to see.
That would be pretty fantastic, especially like, given how much he has given to Nintendo, even though he's not an employee of Nintendo. He's like he's a gun for hire, basically. Like Sora Ltd is his basically his corporation that he created just so he could continue creating games after he left HAL.
Right.
So, it's really up to him what he wants to do. Maybe I don't know. I'm sure he doesn't want to do anything that's like going to make Nintendo mad at him, but it's like maybe he goes and develops something else like for another platform. I mean, I don't think let me see here.
Has he ever done anything for anyone else?
I don't think so. Let's see. So he's done Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, Kirby Superstar, all Nintendo, Smash Brothers, Kirby 64. He was the voice actor in Smash 64 or Kirby 64, by the way, for King DDD. He did Smash Melee, obviously, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, Kirby Air Ride, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, Meteos, which was for DS, Sodate Kucho Uha Mushi King, which I don't know anything about that, and it does not have a Wikipedia page. Smash Brawl, Kid Icarus Uprising, Smash for 3DS and Wii U, and Smash Ultimate. So no, he has only done, unless that Sodatete is a multi-platform game, he has never done anything. I mean, because he worked for HAL, and then he founded Sora in 2005 to kind of operate as his own.
Interesting.
With his wife, by the way. That's who he founded that with.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, it would be interesting to see him like flex his muscles elsewhere, but I think he has such a tightly woven relationship with Nintendo. It would be weird to be like, "Yep, I'm making a game for Xbox."
I mean, look, he probably was one of the very first persons to get like the dev kit for the new hotness that's coming out next year. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's such a trusted name in the Nintendo fan base and the Nintendo development system that it would be weird for him to go elsewhere. I don't think it would be smart for him, honestly. I think developing for Nintendo has proven to be a path to success for him, and why deviate from that?
So just real quick, did he mention at the end of this video, did he say like, this is when you can expect something?
Oh no.
Okay, that's
nothing along those lines.
Yeah.
So
that sounds right.
nothing going there, but yeah, I'm obviously. Everybody should go check out these videos that he's done on YouTube. Like he said, he hasn't monetized any of them, and it's just a wealth of knowledge and like insight into the game development process through his perspective. So, and like we've sung his praises, like there are very few people who have done it like him over the course of the year. So like,
and is a likable person.
And he's a likable person. Yeah, he seems like a very very chill dude, but also like he was talking about how like, when he was doing like some game development tasks on top of the YouTube channel, he would be up until like 2 a.m. a lot of nights.
Yeah, that's not pleasant.
No. So he has a crazy work ethic as well.
Yeah.
But Ben, have you heard about this Nintendo Playtest, shrouded in mystery?
I've heard a few things. I think it was open to like some Nintendo Switch Online players or something like that.
Yes. So basically, if you had Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, which is the more expensive, I think it's $50 a year.
Yeah.
You could try and sign up for this. It was first come, first serve. They ran out of spots within the first minute
Yeah, that
of it
doesn't
being
surprise
live.
me. That makes sense.
And they put out a thing that like, hey, like we would ask everybody to keep this a secret. And I kept saying like, it's going to be a race to see who can leak this info first once it does go live. And wouldn't you know it, that's what happened. I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't want to, reward the leakers.
Sure.
But we can safely rule out my initial speculation, which was that it was a GameCube streaming library. That was not what it ended up being. I have seen what it has ended up being. And at a very high level, I can say that it is something related to very high player count experiences.
Okay.
So yeah, that if you want to find out specifics about what it is, it's pretty easy to find that info on the internet. I'm just not going to go into it on this podcast.
Of course.
But we have had a few games that we are going to talk about where developers have been adamant that it is coming out in 2024. But here we are in October and still no release date. Last week, we had news that Tetris Forever is coming out next month. I don't know if you're excited about that one.
I thought you were going to say Power Rangers Rita's Revenge. Rita's whatever.
Rewind.
Yeah, Rewind.
Well, Tetris Forever is from Digital Eclipse, the same studio that's doing Rita's Rewind. They're a fantastic studio. I sing the praises of them all the time on the show. They finally announced Tetris Forever, which is like their interactive museum dedicated to the history of the Tetris franchise, is coming out in November. That was last week's news. But we now have release date for another game that we've been waiting for for its 2024 release date to transform into an actual date. That is Metal Slug Tactics.
What?
Have you heard about this game?
I've heard of Metal Slug. I've never heard of Metal Slug. Yeah, I've never heard of Metal Slug Tactics.
So Metal Slug, classic side-scrolling shooter.
Yeah.
Arcade, one of the best arcade games of the years that it came out. I still have very fond memories of playing that at birthday parties. I remember I would always play it. I had like my birthday party at the same laser tag place in Maryland, 3 years in a row. And while we were waiting for the pizza to come out, we would all get $5 and pump tokens into the arcade machines. They had 7 or 8 arcade machines there. And Metal Slug was one of them. And we would just have a blast playing Metal Slug. So I have a lot of fondness for this. But this is not a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. This is a grid-based, turn-based tactics game with light roguelike elements based in the Metal Slug universe. And it honestly looks fantastic.
Really?
And a lot of fun. The visuals are ripped straight out of Metal Slug. But, it's the isometric grid-based view. Yeah. You can play as the mainstay characters from the Metal Slug series. And then they're also doing a crossover with Ikari Warriors for some reason. So there's 3 characters they announced: Clark, Ralph, and Leona. I have no idea about the Ikari Warriors franchise.
Neither do I.
I saw it in the trailer that they put out this week. And also, shout out to T. Lopes, composer of the theme song that you hear at the beginning of every episode of this very podcast. Also the composer of Sonic Mania, TMNT, Shredder's Revenge, the Streets of Rage 4 DLC, Penny's Big Breakaway. He's also G.I. Joe. He did the soundtrack for Metal Slug Tactics as well.
Wow.
And we know when it's coming out. So it was announced so long ago that its announcement trailer was at E3 2021, which, granted was one of the virtual ones post-COVID.
Right.
But still,
yes,
E3 hasn't been around for at least a couple of years. So, so it's been floating out there for a while. We've had this 2024 date for so long. And now we can cross off the 2024 date and say it's November 5th.
Okay.
Just about 2 weeks away on Switch and every other major platform.
Wow. Okay. Who's making it?
Oh God, I forget the name of the developer, but we can find out. It is, it's Dotemu that's publishing, which is the same publisher that did, and then Lakeir Studio, Leikir, which is known for Isbara, The First Journey, Wondershot, and Metal Slug Tactics.
So these are, I know Dotemu is a French company. Lakeir is probably a French company.
It is. It sure is. But yeah, that is coming November 5th. Any interest in this?
First glance, I'd say no. But because I've never played Metal Slug, I've never touched it. Let me see what the reviews are. Let me hear what you think after you get your hands on it.
Well, hey, you probably won't have to wait for long because, like I said, November 5th is not that far
True.
away.
True. You know my backlog. It's insane. But I'm not going to say no. I'd love to hear what you have to say after you get your hands on it.
Well, I hope that's soon.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about it on this podcast, and I'm sure I will when the time comes. But now, like I said, we just need to learn when Power Rangers Rita's Rewind is
I
coming out,
know.
and then
I
we can
know.
rest, and then we can be
Yes.
like, okay, we know what the rest of the 2024 release calendar looks like.
Have you seen sidebar the Power Rangers auction that's happening, like where Hasbro is like auctioning off everything that's been in the Power Rangers warehouse for the past 30 years, all the original suits, everything.
No, I haven't seen that.
It's a major heritage auction, and it caused like a major uproar in the fandom and everything like that.
Weird. Chance to get your hands on a piece of history. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of places do that. Like Marvel did that after they shut down like the Daredevil
The Netflix
production
shows,
over on Netflix, and now, of course, now they're bringing it all back because they're starting a new Daredevil series.
Right.
But
Right.
you could get your hands on a piece of history. There's websites devoted to that.
Yeah.
Where it's like if you want like an authentic prop from like a show or a movie that's done with production, and like they're not going to hang on to it at the studio. There are websites that you can go to that like that is what they specialize in.
Yeah. But Rita's Rewind is like the last like real big upcoming outside of like the ongoing comics and stuff. Like although a new comic series for Power Rangers is starting soon.
Mm-hmm.
But Rita's Rewind is like the only thing that's in development having to do with the franchise right now.
Yeah, it's it's one of those games where it's like as soon as I see the art style and like the concept of it, it immediately was like, okay, well, Shredder's Revenge was amazing. This is a different studio than Shredder's Revenge, but it's Digital Eclipse, so
Right.
it's going to be an incredible product more than likely, and I have utmost faith in it being a good product. So here's hoping that it is, because the last few Power Rangers games, I mean, Battle for the Grid, which is the fighting game, it's pretty good, but it's almost like I'd always rather play Street Fighter.
Yeah, it's not what I want.
Yeah, so a side-scrolling beat 'em up that harkens back to like when I loved the franchise, that's what I'm in for.
Hell yeah.
But before we move on to the news, now is as good a time as any to remind you that you can support all things Nintendo through several different methods. The best way is through the Patreon page, which offers bonuses like early and ad-free episodes, access to the community Discord, priority for Q&A episodes, and if you come in at the $10 level, you get an entire second weekly podcast called All Things Gamers, which covers the entire video game industry. Other ways to support the show include the merch shop on tpublic.com and my YouTube channel, which you can find at Brian P. Shea. All right, Ben, we've got several indie game crossover announcements to run down here. I don't know what's going on this week in indie games, but here we go. So a true contender for my game of the year, and probably my most unexpected favorite game in a long, long time, Balatro.
Okay.
Getting more crossover content through a free update. Back in August, we got decks based on The Witcher 3, Vampire Survivors, Among Us, and Dave the Diver. Today, as we're recording this, we learned of another crossover that is available now. So this update adds decks from Cyberpunk 2077,
Cool.
The Binding of Isaac, Slay the Spire, and Stardew Valley.
It's quite a bunch.
Such a cool thing that they're doing, where they're just like, I mean, not only indies, but also like two of the probably highest budget games of the last decade, The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. So It's really cool that they're diversifying there. I don't know if you've played Balatro.
I haven't, but I mean, I've heard wonderful things, and it's something that I'll definitely check out eventually.
Mm-hmm. It's a game that has, the more I think about it, the more I wonder if it is my actual game of the year.
Wow.
Which it means it's competing. Even if it doesn't win, it is mentioned in the same breath for me as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Astrobot. Yeah. That's how much I love Balatro.
What about it did you like? What spoke to you about?
So
do
you know what it is?
No. So I know nothing except for the name.
It's a poker-based roguelite. And basically what it is you get your hand, and you have to make as many like poker hands as you can. You don't have to have any poker knowledge in order for you to enjoy this game. Like
Good start for me.
our reviewer at Game Informer never played a hand of poker in his life, and he gave it a 9.5 out of 10. And it's his game of the year to this day. At least, I mean, it was Marcus Stewart. As of, the last time I talked to him, like probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, it was still his game of the year.
Wow.
And, as you go, you have like, you can level up different cards. So they have different effects. And there's always like a score you have to hit. And then in between rounds, you take your earnings and you can buy jokers. And these jokers that you put up in your inventory have different effects. So like one will be like, okay, anytime you play a face card, it gives you this multiplier.
Yeah.
And anytime you, if your hand that you play is a straight, it gives you this multiplier. And then you can level up different hands that you have as well. So like if you like really love playing like 2 pairs,
yeah,
then you can level up that through like your in the in-game shop with the money that you make during your run. And like when it starts humming and you have all these multipliers kicking in and you're just like blowing through the levels, that is when it is at its best. And it's just like building up to that and like figuring out what the strategy you're going to employ in each round, and then like converting your deck into that type of play style, because it's, it's so random based on like what cards you draw in your shop. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go into this and play like all heart cards, and I'm going to build my deck around that. And then you're like, oh my God, I got this really powerful joker. Now I got to start spending money to start converting it so that, instead of having heart cards be like the focus of it, I got this really powerful joker that like boosts, flushes or something like that, or like straights. Say I found this amazing thing that's going to like count all the straights as like triple or whatever. Then you start like converting all of your original cards over into this other style that you're having. So like that way you can like basically capitalize on it there. It's incredible. And I'm not doing an adequate job of explaining it, but it is, it's unbelievable. One of my favorite indie games of all time, and one of my favorite games of this year.
It is on Switch.
It's on everything. It's on iOS now.
Oh, that's insane.
So
and Android.
Those are 2. It is on Android. It's on, if you have Apple Arcade, it just came out on Apple Arcade. I have that version on my phone, even though I travel with the Switch. But like sometimes if I'm just like out and about and I don't have my Switch with me, it's like I'll play a hand of Balatro, or I'll play like a run.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
maybe I'll check this out. This
should.
It's insane.
It's
on sale. It's on sale until next week.
Well, there you go.
Brian, what have you done to me? All right.
I'm telling you. So that is one of my favorite indie games of all time, getting crossover content. And I can't mention Balatro without mentioning Vampire Survivors, which is another one of my recent favorite indie games of all time. And, technically I already did mention Vampire Survivors when I was talking about the crossover earlier. But now it's actual news. So Vampire Survivors earlier this year already added Contra DLC. And you may recall that I was like, it's kind of weird that they're not going for another one of these Konami owned brands, because the theme is like all like killing monsters. The name is Vampire Survivor. Why did they not do this other obvious Konami crossover? And they went with Contra, which is a cool thing because I love Contra as well, but it seemed like the obvious answer was right there. And guess what, Ben? They finally did it. They capitalized on spooky season by announcing the Ode to Castlevania DLC, which is coming out literally on Halloween. So this is going to add over 20 new characters, 40 new weapons, 30 music tracks, which is awesome because Castlevania music slaps, and the biggest map in Vampire Survivors history.
Cool.
And the cool thing is these DLC things, they're not like $15 or anything. Like the DLC for Vampire Survivors is like $2 to $4 each time. So it's like and the game itself, I think, is only like $3 or $4.
Yeah, I think 2 of my friends were playing it a few months ago, and it looked a lot of fun. I might check that out, actually. Yeah,
those are my 2 time killers. Like if I'm on a long flight, those are the ones that let's see. I'm looking up what the actual price is. And it's $5 for the base game, and currently it's on sale for $4.24. So if that extra 76 cents was giving you a hard time, now you can. It's also currently on free game trial on Switch.
Okay.
Which, again, if that $4.24. You were really strapped for it. You can try it for free if you're a Switch Online member. Today through the 30th.
Gotcha.
So go check that. And then, like I said, all the DLC is like super cheap as well.
Yeah.
And we have one more. The cross-pollination continues with the indie games, because this was actually at the center of controversy when it was pinned as an indie game at the Game Awards last year. But we have a new update that adds indie game crossover content for Dave the Diver.
Okay.
So first, you can actually play Balatro in Dave the Diver now, which is crazy to think about.
You can play the full-blown game?
No, it's like there's like special challenges, but it is like the actual game in there. Like I was watching the trailer, and it was like, no, this is just Balatro, but like one of the Dave the Diver characters is like commentating while you're playing. And it's like, I'm assuming they give you like different challenges. I don't know. I haven't played this version of Balatro, but watching it, I was like, no, this is just the Balatro like interface.
Yeah.
Like, so it's wild that they just added like presumably like a miniaturized version of Balatro within another game.
Yeah.
You can also talk with the mushroomer from Potion Craft to learn how to make potions at the restaurant that Dave works at. And then finally, indie singer-songwriter MXM Toon, who is a pretty popular YouTube singer-songwriter, she has been added to the game and will give in-game performances, which seems pretty neat.
Yeah.
Do any of these crossover things that I just rattled off, the Balatro, the Vampire Survivors, and the Dave the Diver one, do they pique your interest?
I mean, the Balatro one kind of does. Have you played Inscription?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I started it, and I just, like, fell off of it, but just because, like, of other things. But, like, I grew up playing, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokémon and, like, all those card games and everything. I used to do tournaments and stuff, and so, like, the idea of, like, different Jokers and that sort of thing, like, Balatro, like, really piqued my interest. So maybe I'll check out Balatro.
You should.
And if my friends online, they like to, if they want to, like, fire up Vampire Survivors, I'm like, yeah, I'll drop $5. I'll check it out. Yeah.
Both of those games, especially if you find yourself on trains or planes very often,
yeah,
those are must-haves on your Switch. Or, they're both on phones as well, if you'd rather just like have your phone in your pocket.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, those are the indie game crossovers. But how about another themed block of news here? So that theme is retro, or at least retro-facing games that have been announced as coming to Switch relatively soon. So we have Worms Armageddon Anniversary Edition. Did you ever play the Worms games?
No, I've never played the Worms games.
So like basically like side-scrolling turn-based action games where you're like, you can do PvP, or there's also campaigns and everything. But this hit Switch last month, again, from Digital Eclipse. No idea how they continue to churn out so many games, even if they are like, a lot of them are re-releases or remasters or like collections. This has another interactive documentary like the studio has become known for, but it also has the fully playable version of the game with new modern display options. This week, the news is we learned that they're adding 3 additional games to this remaster early next year. So you'll be able to play Worms from Super Nintendo, Worms from Genesis, and Worms World Party from Game Boy Advance. And it's also worth noting that the game is currently on sale for $20 if you are wanting to pick up this remaster. I loved Worms when it came to Xbox Live Arcade back on Xbox 360. That was when I jumped into the Worms franchise, and I've kind of kept up with it ever since. When I saw this was on sale and they were adding this older content to this, and it was Digital Eclipse, I immediately bought this because $20 for this game is a steal, especially when they're going to be adding additional content.
For sure.
All right, so this one was announced last year, but one of the first games I ever played on PlayStation, PS1, is coming to Switch and other major platforms. Croc: Legend of Gobos. I don't know if you ever played Croc on PS1.
No, but I remember like seeing like trailers for it and just seeing like videos of it, and I'm like, this is just like every other platformer, kind of. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to like debase it or anything, but like there were just so many like weird characters all at that time.
Yeah, it does. It's fine, right? I was more of a Spyro guy back then, when it came to like PS1 platformers, but Croc holds a special place in my heart, primarily because it was on a demo disc that I got right out at the early stages of when I got my PS1.
What did the demo disc come in, like a magazine or something?
It was either that or Pizza Hut. I think it
Pizza
might have
Hut,
been
yeah.
Pizza Hut. It was
Okay.
like that and like Siphon Filter and like a few other games were on it, and then a bunch of trailers.
Yeah.
Um, but so this version is going to include updated graphics, controls involving analog sticks, and a better camera. So this originally came to PS1 in 1997, and kind of a cult classic at this point. So they finally confirmed that it is coming to Switch and every other major platform aside from Steam for some reason.
Huh.
Which, skipping Steam always seems like a bad idea when you're coming to PC, unless
Well, do
Epic may have funded some of it. I don't know, but like it just seems
well,
like
do
a
you
weird
think
choice.
it'll come to Steam eventually?
Maybe
Unless Epic funded it.
it would
Yeah.
be nice if they did, but I don't know.
Hmm.
It just seems like a weird omission. But it is coming to Switch, so something to look forward to there if you were a PS1 fan. And another game that is at least retro-facing is coming to, quote, Nintendo platforms. Ooh, how mysterious. Yooka-Replaylee is the remastered version of Yooka-Laylee
Oh.
that adds new art and animations, new challenges, a new collectible currency, a new map, new tonic modifiers, better camera and controls, and a remastered soundtrack. And the thing that a lot of people are picking up and running with is that they were like, oh, coming to PlayStation and Xbox, and they didn't say Switch. They only had the Nintendo logo, not the Switch logo.
Oh,
So are you?
interesting.
I mean, I think a lot of people are banking on this being like a Switch 2, and that's just
Yeah.
how like Playtonic is getting around it being like a Switch 2 thing by just saying, oh, it's coming to Nintendo platforms. Hint, hint.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I
Could
mean,
be.
we could be getting a stacked lineup for Switch 2 in its early days. Like when you think about how popular Switch 1 has been, we might be getting a lot of games that people have, like developers have held off on putting on Switch because one, they know that the next platform is inevitably going to be more powerful. And if they put it out on Switch 2, they won't have to, cut it out at the knee too
Can I,
much.
can I say something about that? I
Not at
think
all. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
that's fair. If they do that, like I think that if they call it the Switch 2, they have to do that. Because we already had brand confusion with the Wii versus the Wii U.
Yeah.
The Nintendo DS versus the 3DS. Like we already had that. I understood it. You understood it, but that's because we're lizard people gamers. Like, but the general audience doesn't understand that. And so like if you call it Switch 2, you better come out swinging with a new Mario game and some other crazy thing.
Well, I mean, that's my prediction. My prediction is a Mario Odyssey 2 is going to be a launch title. That is my prediction for Switch 2.
I'm right there with you. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've talked about the title or the naming of whatever the Switch successor is going to be, and I think Switch 2 is the right call, but it is extremely not Nintendo-like to do that. Like
I don't disagree with you. I can't think of anything else other than Switch 2.
The other ones that I've heard people say is like Super Nintendo Switch,
Yeah.
which I like it from like a legacy perspective, but I also think that kind of falls into like the kind of the nomenclature of like new Nintendo 3DS or like it's just an upgraded version.
Charlie, why do you want this one? What makes it different? Why am I going to buy this for you? Yeah.
Shout out Charlie.
Shout out Charlie. Come on, you got good I don't know what I was thinking. I've been up since 6, man. But I do think that one of the launch titles for this mysterious console, give me a double pack of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Break free from the Wii U. This is ridiculous.
I would love that. I don't think it's going to be a launch title because I think they're going to space it out over the first year. The way they did with Switch, where it wasn't like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Breath of the Wild launching on the same day.
You're right. Yeah.
So I think that's probably what they're going to do. But I would not be surprised if that was like one of their Zelda releases. Now that they've seemingly made Zelda an annualized franchise.
Yes.
But we will have to wait and see. But Yooka-Laylee, the original Yooka-Laylee is on Switch, as is Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair, which so If you're not familiar with Playtonic is a bunch of ex-Rare developers.
Yeah,
So the people who made Donkey Kong Country originally and the people who made
Banjo.
Banjo-Kazooie, Yooka-Laylee is like a Banjo-Kazooie style game, like a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie by the people who made the original Banjo-Kazooie. And then
Yeah,
Impossible Lair, Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair is a spiritual successor to Donkey Kong Country by the people who made the original trilogy. So that original version of Yooka-Laylee and also Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair are already on Switch, but this is just a remastered version that we're talking about that apparently is going to add a lot of quality of life stuff that they are working on.
hmm.
Um,
It is interesting that the Nintendo platform, it hasn't been announced for it, so, or the Nintendo version of it rather.
yeah,
But
we'll have to wait and see what Nintendo platforms means.
yes, yes.
But if you don't want to wait, speaking of Yooka-Laylee, we are getting one of the games that Yooka-Laylee tries to capture the spirit of on Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. We already have Banjo-Kazooie. Sadly, it's not Donkey Kong 64, but it is Banjo-Tooie, which is the sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, uh,
Yeah.
available at I guess this week on Nintendo Switch Online's N64 library. Came out originally in 2000 and is considered by a lot of people to be pretty awesome. And it's a follow up to Rare's original entry in the series. And yeah, if you don't want to wait for Yooka-Laylee or Yooka-Replaylee, you can play Banjo-Tooie, which is by a lot of the same people and similar style game.
Yooka-Replaylee is such a fun name.
It is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's also a perfect name, Yooka-Laylee, because they had Grant Kirkhope use the ukulele in a lot of the soundtrack.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so really cool connective tissue there.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to give Yooka-Laylee another shot. I think when I reviewed it, I was like not the biggest fan of it. I think I gave it like a 7 or something
Well,
like that.
it came out in like what, 2014,
No,
2015 or
it was
something?
like 2016. I want to say 2016
Okay.
or 2017.
I remember following it and being like, yeah, I like Banjo. I didn't own Banjo-Kazooie, but like I liked playing it at like friends' houses and stuff. And I followed it and I was like, eventually I'll play this. And I just forgot about it, other games and stuff. Maybe I'll check it out.
The Impossible Lair is the much better entry in my opinion, but
Hmm.
that's it's 3D versus 2D, so
Okay.
it's really just Banjo-Kazooie versus Donkey Kong Country. I'm much more of a Donkey Kong Country guy myself, so I maybe am predisposed to like Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair more than the original. But I
Right.
also think they figured out a lot about like what people do and don't like about collectathons in like the 21st century through the
Yeah.
first Yooka-Laylee, because it didn't get the best reviews, and then the Impossible Lair got way better reviews, but it didn't have as much attention because people were kind of like not about the first Yooka-Laylee. But then like they implemented a lot of lessons into Impossible Lair.
Right.
So go check that out.
Yeah.
Close out the news segment. Some unfortunate news, but not as bad as it may have initially sounded. According to reports by French journalist Gatos earlier this week, Ubisoft has disbanded one of this year's Game of the Year contenders' development studios, or at least the team, Prince of Persia and the Lost Crown. So the team had just put out DLC when this news hit, and immediately I think people jumped to conclusions based on probably conditioning nowadays that when this news
Yeah.
type stuff hits, that they just assume there are layoffs involved. But thankfully, based on a statement put out by the Lost Crown senior producer Abdelak Elgus, it doesn't seem like that is the case. It seems like everybody still has their jobs, but it does seem like most of the members of the team have in fact moved on to other projects within Ubisoft, which,
Hmm.
while good, doesn't seem to bode very well for chances of us getting another entry along these lines.
Yeah.
But here's his full statement. He said, quote, "I'm extremely proud of our team's work and the passion at Ubisoft Montpellier to create a game that resonated with players and critics alike, and I am confident in its long-term success. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is now at the end of its post-launch roadmap with 3 free content updates and 1 DLC that released in September. We are now focusing on making the game available to more players. It was recently launched on Steam and will be available on Mac by this winter. Most of the team members who worked on the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown have shifted to other projects that will benefit from their expertise. We know players have a lot of love for this brand, and Ubisoft is excited to bring more Prince of Persia experiences in the future." So it seemed like that statement kind of was like tempering, like, hey, like nobody lost their job. We're not like completely abandoning Prince of Persia. I mean, we know we have that Sands of Time remake allegedly still happening that's been like
Yeah.
delayed like 12 times and like is now in seemingly development limbo. I would absolutely love another Prince of Persia game like this, even though admittedly I haven't played all the way through Lost Crown still.
Yeah.
But the thing that actually got me most excited was they made an offhand comment in a Reddit AMA about wanting to do, like, they were like, hey, what's your dream project? And he basically was like, well, one of the designers was like, I'd love to do a remake in this style of Zelda 2. Like the kind of the less beloved Zelda game back on NES, Adventure of
Interesting.
Link. I think
Interesting.
they could do some cool stuff given the pedigree of that team.
Yeah.
I think that would have been sick. But what would you want from that team?
I don't know. I mean, I probably another Prince of Persia game, just like in this same regard that we just got. I mean, I didn't get to play the full game. I got to play some of the demo, and it was really interesting. I really liked some of the mechanics. There were just other games that came out during that time.
Yeah, that's my fault. My reason as well.
Yeah, embarrassment of riches sometimes, But I would love to see more of that. I know that it's a really boring answer for more of the same, but
Yeah, give
yeah,
them another shot at it. Like so many games and so many franchises improve so much from that first entry to the second entry,
right.
and they already knocked it out of the park with this first entry. So, like, hopefully a new entry would be even better. And we do have this, like I said, the Sands of Time remake. We also have the Rogue Prince of Persia, which is an early access title that they're presumably still developing as well, which is a different team.
Yeah.
But it's like Ubisoft is showing that they're committed to this franchise now, which they haven't been in a very long time.
You know what? I'm going to say something insane and probably wouldn't work. But a
Never.
2D Watch Dogs game.
Oh, interesting. That could be cool. Like being able to
Yeah.
hack stuff and everything from.
Yeah. Yeah. But like it's all 2D and you are like running away from like police officers or whatever. Like it's less open world and it's more insular.
I could see that. Interesting. I'd have to see it in action to really like understand like the full breadth of it. But like, elevator pitch, I'm in.
Sure. Yeah. It's too bad that like they decided to like completely abandon Watch Dogs as a franchise. I mean, I love that franchise.
The first one fell well short of expectations, but the rest of the games have been
Yes.
pretty solid.
Yeah. Yeah. But we'll see what happens with Ubisoft.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of news involving Ubisoft and like, potential buyout from
Yeah.
so there's a lot of stuff up in the air, but Assassin's Creed Shadows is a game that I am so stoked for. It's maybe my most anticipated game of next year, aside from maybe Ghosts of Yotoi, which is a now looks kind of similar, like big
Yeah.
open world action game starring a samurai in feudal Japan.
Shadows comes out in March.
Either February or March.
Okay, and then Yotai comes out.
Yotoi is probably going to be holiday.
Okay,
so there will be a gap. I mean, because they just announced it as 2025, and it just got announced like last month. So it'd be hard to imagine they would put it out before like holiday of next year.
Right. Makes sense.
But that's all the news. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking about Sonic X Shadow Generations and a couple of other new releases. We will be right back. I've talked a lot about Sonic X Shadow Generations on this show in the lead up to launch. Well, here it is, finally out, and I've played all the way through both campaigns, so it's time to give a full review. For those who are unaware, Sonic Generations originally came to PS3, Xbox 360, and PC in 2011 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. This was actually a trend for a while, Ben. I don't know if you know this. Sonic Team would put out a big game to celebrate milestone anniversaries of the franchise. So the 10-year anniversary was Sonic Adventure 2, and if you were like me, you bought the game at launch, and it came with a little commemorative coin that said like Sonic 10th anniversary or something. It's a little gold coin. Then in 2006, to celebrate the 15-year anniversary, they put out Sonic the Hedgehog, or as we affectionately know it now, Sonic 06.
Yes.
That game was supposed to be ushering in a new era but we all know how that turned out.
I have some thoughts on that, but we will get to that when we talk about generations.
All right. And then the next big milestone anniversary was the 20th anniversary of Sonic in 2011, which Sonic Team used as an excuse to do a bit of a greatest hits remake release where they featured Sonic going back in time to revisit his most iconic stages as both classic and modern Sonic. This is the game where those characters were kind of split into two separate characters, more or less, even though it's also just one is a past version, for some reason cannot speak, but classic Tails can speak. It's very weird. And the original Sonic Generations...
Tails is smarter than Sonic.
Yeah, that's fair. But as... what was it? Qui-Gon Jinn said, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
Right, that's true.
Boom. Yeah. Star Wars meets Sonic.
Yeah.
Wrap up the show. Let's go.
There it is.
So when the original Sonic Generations came out, it got a 77 out of 100 on Metacritic. And I think the score for the website that I used to run back then, I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Ben, what was your experience with the original Sonic Generations?
So the original Sonic Generations came out when I was still in medical school, and one of my friends picked it up for me. Her husband was coming to visit us because my medical school was outside of the country, and like not a place where you can like really find video games. And so I was like, I need your husband to bring me a copy of Uncharted 3 and Sonic Generations. And he brought both. I did not even touch my collector's edition of Uncharted 3. I just went absolutely insane with Sonic Generations. And so that man, what a game.
Yeah,
that probably at the time my favorite Sonic game of all time.
Wow,
it just did so many things right, and like I love the Boost era. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a Boost apologist, and it was a true to form celebration in the best of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good celebration, and you know that explains why if you fire up Sonic X Shadow Generations, we're not on a milestone anniversary this year. However, like you'll notice that there's like the story is framed around it being Sonic's birthday party, so that's why that is. But by the way, Takashi Iizuka, who is the creative officer over at Sonic Team, he's been around since he did his first ever gig. I did a profile on him on the Game Informer YouTube channel. It was a video profile. And his first ever gig was doing QA for Sonic 2, and then he was a designer for Sonic 3, like one of the lead designers of Sonic 3. So he's been with Sonic Team forever, and he's loved doing these milestone releases. When I interviewed him at E3 2019, the last in-person E3, I asked him when the next big year for Sonic was going to be, and he told me 2021 to coincide with the 30th anniversary of the franchise. And then that obviously had to change with the COVID pandemic. And, Sonic Frontiers was originally planned to come in 2021, but then it got delayed to 2022. But that brings us to Sonic X Shadow Generations. It gives you the full Sonic Generations package, which you absolutely love.
Yep.
But better resolution and a smooth 60 frames per second frame rate. But here's the disclaimer, by the way. I played this game on PS5, so I cannot personally speak to the Switch's performance firsthand, but before we hit record, I did do some research, and based on my initial research from the people who have been playing this early access version over on the Switch, it looks like it runs pretty steadily at 30 frames per second, so not the 60 FPS that we have on like PS5 and Xbox Series X, and it operates at 1080p instead of the 60 FPS and 2160p on the more powerful console. So still better than the original PS3 and Xbox 360 launch, which was 30 frames per second at 720p. So it's still an upgrade from the original version, just not as good.
That's really good to hear, because actually before the Sonic X Shadow Generations was announced, I think it was announced in February of this year. Like, that sounds right.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But like sometime last year, I was replaying Sonic Generations on my Xbox Series S, because I was like, oh, it got the FPS boost, just
Mhm.
like Unleashed. And I was like, the visuals on this game did not age well.
You don't think so?
I like back like the old Sonic generations, it does not look great. Compared to like this remaster, everything pops. The color pops, like it just looks so much better.
Wow. I always thought that Generations and Unleashed aged remarkably well from a visuals perspective, especially with the FPS boost on Xbox.
I think Unleashed aged a little bit better, but yeah, no, Generations I personally did not feel like Generations aged very well.
Interesting. Okay. Well, to each their own.
Yeah.
The big selling point in this package, Ben, as you know, is Shadow Generations, which is a completely new second campaign that goes on the side of Sonic Generations. It's kind of like how Mario 3D World came out on Switch and it had Bowser's Fury, which is a separate campaign, completely new. And this time, it's open world, kind of. So
It's open zone. They
open
don't like
zone.
open world.
They really don't like open
Yeah,
world.
yeah, open zone.
I was made aware of that when I was writing the Sonic Frontiers cover story. That
Yes.
open world was a kind of a no phrase for them.
Right.
But as the name implies, Shadow Generations, it features Shadow as the main character, and it's basically telling what was he doing during this, because he wasn't at the birthday party, and he was just basically.
You know, that whole reasoning, I just sort of took it as Sonic's Silver wasn't there.
Yeah.
None of the rivals were there. Metal Sonic wasn't going to be there, but you know what I mean. Like
Metal Sonic put a bomb in the cake.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I don't know. Like I guess Silver is in the future or wherever the hell he is, and so I guess fine. It's fair to ask where was Shadow during Sonic's birthday, but Shadow's too cool, man. He's too cool for birthdays.
Nobody's too cool for birthdays.
He's over 50 years old. He's nuts.
He is. So the big thing here, aside from the levels that they give you, which allow you to like revisit these stages from past Shadow appearances, is the white space. So in Sonic Generations, it's a side-scrolling area where you can climb up and like explore different areas and like challenge acts and everything. So this is actually an adaptation of the open zone format from Sonic Frontiers. And you go around and complete challenges within this open zone area, and there's different like entry points, and you unlock different areas, and you unlock powers that allow you to access new areas. How do you feel about its implementation here?
So the open zone, I really like it. I really liked it in Sonic Frontiers. I thought that it was like the natural progression and natural evolution of the franchise, and of like what Sonic gameplay can be and should be.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing it for Shadow, I think has been really exciting so far. So like I have not finished the game. I've gotten up to a certain story point. Are we allowed to talk about the levels?
We'll talk about the levels, but I don't want to spoil the boss battles, and I don't want to spoil any story stuff.
I'm not going to spoil the stories. I will say the level that I just finished was Sunset Heights.
Okay.
So that is where I'm at. And then on my way to go find the boss for that one. It's a little hard getting used to Shadow's homing attack being different than Sonic's, with Double X on PlayStation being Sonic's homing attack, and for Shadow it's X and then square.
I think you can do it as X square for Sonic in this version, at least.
You can, yeah. So like I did think about that. Like I think last night when I was playing, I was like, why don't I just do this? Like just make it. What am I doing?
Make it muscle memory.
Yeah, make it muscle memory. But also like maybe I shouldn't be jumping between the two campaigns. I don't know. I like doing that. For Shadow's powers, though, specifically, so there's the Doom. What is it?
Oh, there's plenty. I mean, there's the Doom Wing, there's the Doom Surf, Doom
Morph,
Chaos Spears,
and Chaos Control.
Yes.
Okay. So Chaos Control, that's just like stopping time, slowing things down. The spears basically like paralyze enemies.
And you can hit certain targets as well with it.
You can hit certain targets with them as well. Doom Surf takes a little bit of like getting used to, but I think it's just like a really interesting way of traversal for Shadow. I have not done Doom Morph yet. I'm really looking forward to that one because when I saw it in the trailer, that one looked really cool. And I also keep on running into Sludge currently, and I figure that will probably help a lot. There's also that one where it's like this like knockback where like
Doom Blast,
like where you have to like fight these other Doom monsters, and you basically rocket them up into the sky, and then you like blast them into like a breakable.
Yeah, so you go up in the air, and like you launch them up, and then you like teleport up to get them, and then while you're up there, you're suspended in midair for like a second.
Yeah,
and you can aim where you want to go, and you blast the enemy forward, and then you teleport after them. So it's like a way you can reach different areas.
I like the idea. I don't know if I like the implementation 100%.
Of Doom Blast.
And that's because it slows things down.
It does. Yeah. I mean, so I don't know. So about the open zone specifically, let's drill into this. So I mentioned in my Sonic Frontiers review that I felt extremely hopeful about the future of the Sonic franchise after playing that game because of how much groundwork that Frontiers laid for like the future of the franchise. And you can tell in Shadow Generations that Sonic Team learned some lessons about how to design these big open areas. But I don't think they're fully there quite yet. Yeah, there are still some areas that are like kind of tedious or confusing to get to, but it flows way better than some of the areas in Frontiers.
Camera issues,
fewer and further between than like before, but like I think that they are learning these lessons, and I'm hoping that means that they'll get to that point that they need to be at by the time Sonic Frontiers 2 or whatever it ends up being called is ready to come out in probably it's got to be like 2 or 3 years, right?
I would think it's probably 2 years. So what year are we at? The 34th, Sonic's 34th birthday.
This year was the 33rd.
This year was the 33rd. Okay, so then
91 is the.
So then in 2 years it'll be the next milestone.
Yeah.
Ish.
We'll do Sonic X Shadow X Silver Generations.
Maybe. I mean, that's the 20-year anniversary of Sonic 06. So you walked into it. I didn't.
You gave me a pit in my stomach. I thought you were going to say it was the 20th anniversary of Sonic Generations. Like I just wasn't doing math in my head at that point. I just thought you were going to say. I was like, do not tell me that.
No. Don't worry.
Yeah. So let's talk about the levels here. So the levels were Space Colony Arc from Sonic Adventure 2. Rail Canyon, funniest name ever.
Actually, no. Incorrect.
Not necessarily from Sonic Adventure 2, but it is Space Colony Arc, which people know from Sonic Adventure 2.
Correct, but Space Colony Arc, I believe, was a level in Shadow the Hedgehog.
I'm reasonably sure it was in Sonic Adventure 2 as well.
So the level was actually called Final Rush and then Final Chase.
Okay, so Space Colony Arc was the place.
That was the location, yes. Yeah. But I can see this level was modeled after Final Rush and Final Chase. I can see why they didn't end up calling it that, and they called it Space Colony Arc.
When it's the first level in the game.
It's the first level of the game, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a combination of both versions of it. Yeah. So I knew that was also in Sonic Generations. I mean, I'm sorry, Sonic Shadow the Hedgehog.
Shadow the Hedgehog, yeah.
But yeah, I think that yes, you can kind of say it pulls from both versions.
Yeah.
So Space Colony Arc from Sonic Adventure 2 / Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's also it's kind of the first level that sets the table for the story.
Yeah.
Rail
Look
Canyon.
Look at me being a Sonic fan and just correcting people with
just boot you from this call right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Funniest name ever, Rail Canyon from Sonic Heroes.
Yes.
Kingdom Valley from Sonic 06.
Yeah.
Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces. Chaos Island from Sonic Frontiers, which is interesting because Shadow was not in Sonic Frontiers, so it's kind of interesting that they gave him a Sonic Frontiers level.
Yep.
Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 2, and then we have bosses from various games that I will not go about spoiling, but
Right.
there were two that I have covered in the preview phase, so I don't feel bad about spoiling that. It was Metal Overlord and Bio Lizard. So Metal Overlord from Sonic Heroes and Bio Lizard from Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah.
Not Shadow the Hedgehog.
Not chat. Yes. So the levels, Space Colony Arc was exhilarating. It was just it was such a cool way to open things. Did you watch, by the way, I'm sorry to like sidetrack, but did you watch Dark Beginnings?
Yeah, the 3-part animated web series that they put on YouTube.
Yeah.
Very good.
Very good. Absolutely wonderful. And so it was really cool to see like how that segued right into Space Colony Arc. And then we got what was the next one? Oh, Rail Canyon.
Rail Canyon.
Your favorite. This was an interesting one. I liked it. Didn't love it, but I liked it. I also really liked that we got, I think for Rail Canyon Act 2, we got the music for Bullet Station.
I'm trying to recall. I don't remember exactly. So you might
Act
be
2 of Sonic Heroes level.
You might be more well versed in this era of Sonic than me, just because I know the classic stuff backwards and forwards. I know the adventure series pretty well.
Yeah.
I would say that I still know all these games. My least knowledgeable perspective is during that kind of dark period for the Sonic franchise, which was Heroes up until Unleashed. But even Unleashed, I am not super well versed in because I despise the Werehog stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we never had to endure Werehog stuff in Generations.
That would have been an interesting mechanic, wouldn't it have been?
It would have been.
It also would have made you hate the game, but
yes,
yeah.
Unless they did it better,
they did it better.
That's the whole point of a remake,
right? Absolutely. So Rail Canyon and Rail Canyon was good. Not great.
Kingdom Valley was next.
Maybe my favorite.
Really? From Sonic 06.
So I want to, when we talk about favorite levels, I love Kingdom Valley. And the reason why I'll talk about more like when we talk about our favorite levels and everything like that. But this, I will say, this felt like what Kingdom Valley was promised to us back in E3. This felt like Kingdom Valley correctly. When there was like one section of Kingdom Valley where he like goes up on the roof and he's about to like go back down. And once he gets to that section, I had an immediate brain flashback to the actual Sonic 06 game. And I literally said out loud, "Oh, baby. Yes, this is what I want. This is what I want."
I got oh, baby out of you.
Yeah, this is the brain rot that I want. So Kingdom Valley might be my favorite level so far.
Wow. Well, we'll see how that changes as you keep playing through it. Yeah. Like I said, not going to spoil the other
Sunset
bosses.
Heights I also played. I wanted to ask, what are your they did a lot of like story beats in terms of like twisting the dimensions like throughout like the Space Colony Arc level and Sunset Heights, and it was like very like Doctor Strangey and everything like that. Is that what you were about to say? Like,
yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it, but we did see it in the Space Colony Arc level in the preview stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And basically the Doom's Eye, which is part of Black Doom, comes in, like morphs the entire area around him and basically changes it to an entirely different level. Most of them are Radical Highway themed.
Yeah.
So you actually get like this really cool remix of the song, which is an amazing song to begin with.
And it's different remixes for each one.
Yeah. So it happens a few times throughout his campaign. And, you know, between that and the Doom powers, I think that's where we and the open zone format of like the white area or white space.
Yeah.
That's where it really feels like we start to differentiate Sonic and Shadow's campaigns, because they would be easy for them to just be like, okay, well, they have basically the same powers and the same like skills and like they could be seen as like, oh well, one is just like a dark version of this other one. Like,
but this was the natural progression. If you're gonna give Sonic new abilities in Sonic Frontiers, then you're gonna give Shadow new abilities in his next big appearance.
yeah, and it should be noted that there's no like skill tree or anything for Shadow like there is in Sonic Frontiers, but you unlock them steadily. It's almost like I don't want to say Metroidvania style exploration where it's like, oh, I have this new power. Now I can go cross that body of water or that sludge. Like that, it does have a little bit of that, yes. So Doomwing is the interesting one because once you get 50 rings, it's almost like a supersonic light type of experience where Shadow can grow wings and fly forward and glide for like however long you want to. And it's powerful, but it doesn't have as much utility as you would think. Maybe in the open zone it does, but I don't know. It's primarily when you're in the zones, it's mostly like telling you which one you should use in the moment.
So
you
it's
can
not
turn
worth
off those.
Getting the $500 first four figures figurine of it.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe they'll continue to make it because like literally when I asked Takashi Iizuka about it, he said that like this was supposed to be kind of like the ultimate form of Shadow outside of like Super Shadow presumably, because it gave him like this really like unique mutation and it gave him like this ability to fly, which like is limited to very few characters in the Sonic universe, but he's actually like just propelled forward. It's not just like Tails where he can like kind of fly slowly upwards,
or Knuckles where he just descends,
or Knuckles where it's a glide. This is kind of like all of it in one. But so I would imagine that they might continue forward with the Doom powers, especially since this is supposed to be canon. So like maybe these powers that he's unlocked in Sonic Generations can carry forward into future entries. There's also these challenge acts that you come across in the world, and this is how you unlock the boss battles. So they have them in Sonic Generations as well, but like, you have to explore the open zone to get to these gates. And these usually consist of things like, that you have to go through a set number of like the special hoops that like propel you forward.
They can be tedious.
Collect a set number of rings in a level. Yeah, they can be a little tedious. Some of them are fun though.
Some of them are okay. I think for like Sonic Generations, last night I did like the Knuckles and Sky Sanctuary, like digging for like medallions or whatever, and I'm like, this is annoying. Like this is like, I understand why this is here, and it's not new. Like this was from like 10 years ago. The Shadow ones feel more like a way for you to understand his powers.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, and so I think they have a little bit more utility. That was very smart of them.
Yeah, it was. I think it's like they learned lessons from what worked and what didn't work in that original release, much like they did with what worked and what didn't work in Sonic Frontiers.
Right.
So we'll end it there on Shadow Generations. Is there anything else you want to say about that side of this package before we move on to the Sonic campaign?
Actually, yeah. I wanted to ask, like, what do you think of like like we talked a little bit about Radical Highway, but like, what do you think of like the music choices and like the music remixes and all of that?
Oh, I think they're awesome. Like they knocked it out of the park with both the Sonic Generation side and the Shadow Generation side. Like the music in Sonic Generations, Sonic X Shadow Generations is, top tier Sonic. I've always loved a lot of the modern remixes that they did with like the Sonic levels. So to hear some of these songs that I know from my history with playing as Shadow, it's really great to hear that stuff. And then so have you fought Metal Overlord yet?
No, I think that's probably next. I don't know. I haven't looked at spoilers, but like I know, like the last two were Kingdom Valley and Sunset Heights. So
when I was playing Sonic Generations through, I got to the Perfect Chaos battle from Sonic Adventure 1. And, there's a remix. There's this really cool remix of Open Your Heart from Crush 40.
It's with Circuit Frequency.
So it's a really cool remix. And I was hoping that we would get a remix of that, of What I'm Made Of for the Metal Overlord fight, because it plays during that. But I don't think it's a remixed version.
It's got some remixed parts. I think June might have redid some guitars, or he remixed some guitars, but that's about it.
Okay, but it wasn't a completely different style of song way Open Your Heart was. That would have been cool, but I'm absolutely did love, because I've beaten it, the Shadow Generations campaign. I think it's worth it even if you've played like Sonic Generations, if you thought like, oh, that game was fun, I think Shadow Generations is markedly better than Sonic Generations.
Yeah. So, Brian, is Shadow the ultimate life form?
I mean, obviously, he has to be. You only hear it 25,000 times over the course of Sonic Adventure 2.
People are obsessed with him in ways that I don't understand, and I don't want to understand.
Everybody loves the bad boy.
Everybody loves the bad boy. Yeah.
Sonic campaign, Sonic Generations, very much what we got in 2011. And for those who aren't aware of the stage list, again, I'm not going to spoil all of the bosses. I already talked about Perfect Chaos, but the levels in Sonic Generations include Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1, Chemical Plant from Sonic 2, Sky Sanctuary from Sonic and Knuckles. There's also a casino table, which is included in this. Originally, it was PC
Pre-order
exclusive.
Bonus. No, it was for the Xbox and PlayStation.
Was it?
As a pre-order bonus? So
I pre-ordered the game and I didn't have it in my Xbox version.
Yep, I had it in mine. So you pre-ordered that, and not only do you get that, but you also get a Sonic outfit for your Xbox avatar and a Supersonic outfit for your avatar.
Did you pre-order? I don't. Maybe I just missed it. I don't know. But there was a pinball table that you can play that harkens back to like Casino Night Zone from and Carnival Night Zone from the early games. Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure. I said Sky Sanctuary from Sonic and Knuckles, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Speed Highway from Sonic Adventure. Very good pick. City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2. One of the most iconic levels of all time. Seaside Hill from Sonic Heroes. Crisis City from Sonic 06. Rooftop Run from Sonic Unleashed, another one of the more iconic levels in the history of the franchise. And Planet Wisp from Sonic Colors. So let's touch on this here.
Yeah.
If you could choose any replacement levels or levels that are missing, what would you go with?
I think that the classic levels are pretty damn near perfect. I can't think of anything. It was always going to be Green Hill. Fine.
Yeah, you can't not put Green Hill Zone in it. Unfortunately, that became a theme because they ended up putting it in Sonic Forces and then Sonic Mania as well.
In everything. Chemical Plant is the reason for most of my childhood anxiety. And
because of the water rising?
Yes. And so, like, I just think that that's such an iconic level as well. Sky Sanctuary, chef's kiss. And I think that Izuka said in his interview with you that that's his favorite level of all time.
Did he? I can't recall because I asked him literally 100 questions.
Yeah,
in that interview.
I remember that one. But I guess maybe Flying Battery.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That could have been cool. I want to talk about the modern ones for a second because we've got a city level and then a city level. That to me is a problem. I don't think that for City Escape had to be in there because that's the best level of all time of any video game. That's just don't add.
Wow, best level of all time in any video game.
Yeah. But Speed Highway, I think, could have been shuffled out for Twinkle Park.
Twinkle Park, interesting pick there. All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But we also got city levels, kind of, like very, very different city levels back to back in Crisis City and Rooftop Run.
Okay, yeah.
Those are cities, very different cities, but...
Yeah, very different cities. Crisis City, so if I think of Sonic 06, the two most iconic levels are Crisis City and Kingdom Valley.
Yeah, now we have them.
Yeah, now we have them. And so, like, Crisis City, that's perfect for that one. If I'm thinking about... What was the other? Rooftop Run. Rooftop Run.
You can't get rid of that.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that. But Planet Wisp, I think, was a misfire. I think Asteroid Coaster would have been a much, much better level.
That would have been a cool pick. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that for the 3DS. I don't know if you played the 3DS Sonic Generation.
Yeah. I wish they had some of those levels in this package. That would have been great. Maybe they'll put it as DLC, but like I don't know how like they could up-res it or adapt it or something.
I feel like you would have to work from like the bottom up to like put that in, but like they had Emerald Coast, they had I mean now we have Radical Highway, but and they made it a Sonic level, which was interesting. They had Water Palace from the Sonic Rush games, which was
let's look up the Sonic Generations 3DS. So I'll give you mine while we look this up.
Yeah.
So the notable absence that I have noted since 2011 is there are no levels from Sonic 3.
Yeah.
And I know Sonic 3 and Knuckles is now considered like canonically a single thing, and we're going to get into that more at the tail end of the show. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
But so my picks, if they were going to do a Sonic 3, I have 3 picks for you. Either launch-based zone, because that's extremely unique. Ice Cap Zone, which might present problems because of the music. But, you know, that's maybe the most iconic level in there. I also like Hydro City. Hydro City is a fantastic.
Hydrocity or Hydrocity?
I've always said Hydrocity, but it makes sense that it would be Hydro City.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then also, you know, in Sonic Generations, you fight Shadow, you fight Metal Sonic, and you fight Silver.
Yeah.
These are rival battles that you fight against. Why doesn't he fight his original rival, Knuckles?
Because he's at the birthday party.
Yeah, but like this could be classic Knuckles. That would be a cool way to bring in the classic version of that character.
But they've teamed up more than they fought.
But he was Sonic's original rival. That's a way they could loop in Sonic 3 content.
I guess that's true. He
like
was
bring
Sonic's
classic
original...
Knuckles the way classic Tails is there. Like classic Knuckles is part of the original 3.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. If they didn't, you know, now that I'm going back where I said Twinkle Park for Sonic Adventure 1, if they didn't do Ice Cap Zone, they could do, what was the ice level in that one?
Was it Ice Cap? I don't know if that was also considered Ice Cap.
I think it might have also been called Ice Cap. But like having that snowboard,
it was Ice Cap.
Okay, having that snowboard thing at the end might be a little too similar to like the gun chase and everything, like the truck chase. Skydeck could have been a cool level as well.
So here again, Sonic Generations on 3DS, which again, none of this content is in Sonic X Shadow Generations. Green Hill. It had Casino Night from Sonic Adventure 2.
Yep.
Again, it leapfrogs Sonic 3 and goes straight to Sonic and Knuckles for Mushroom Hill. Emerald Coast, which is one of my picks for what could replace Radical Highway in or not Radical Highway.
Speed Highway.
Speed Highway in Sonic Adventure 1's representation in Sonic X Shadow Generations. Then Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 2, as you mentioned, which is a Shadow level, but they put it in Sonic.
Yeah.
Water Palace from Sonic Rush, and then Tropical Resort from Sonic Colors.
Right.
The only ones I'd want from that list would be Casino Night, Mushroom Hill, and Emerald Coast.
Yeah.
Emerald Coast would be a pick that I could say, or Windy Valley is also very good from Sonic Adventure 1.
Windy Valley was also very good, yeah.
And then if you wanted to do one from Sonic and Knuckles that's different from Sky Sanctuary, which I don't think... Sky Sanctuary is always going to be in the Greatest Hits package.
Yeah.
But I love Lava Reef. And I know that's not a popular opinion, but I love that. The music is fantastic. Yeah. So the thing that this game, Sonic Generations in general, really represents for me is it's when the level design team showed they understood how to make 3D Sonic levels feel like traditional Sonic levels. Yeah. So like in that, I mean like they got rid of a lot of the instant death pits and instead made them like punish routes where it's like a prevalent 2D Sonic game design tenet. So like if you fell or you didn't react fast enough and like you don't get to go on the higher, faster route that has like maybe a collectible.
Yeah,
you're essentially punished for not hitting that. So you'd either have like more enemies to fight or no collectible to grab, or maybe it's just like a slower, more tedious platforming section. And they did such a great job of making speed and doing cool things feel like the incentive to do well here. And there are several death pits and, you know, especially when you get to like those mid 2000s games, particularly Sonic 06, but it's nowhere near as it was in those games.
Yeah. look, I think that the way that they handled so far in uh in the remaster in Sonic X Shadow Generations, I've gotten to City Escape.
Okay.
I finished up City Escape. I wanted to make sure that I played that before I came on with you because like that is an incredibly important level to me. And I died several times, but
Hey, that truck is a menace.
that truck is a menace. And also falling stinks. But it was also like 7 a.m. and hadn't had my coffee yet. But great level, tremendous.
It
A
is.
plus, more of that.
It is fantastic. I don't like the remix of the music as much as the original. The original is impossible to match.
So, like, look, when you see City Escape, you can hear that level. And yeah, no, you can't beat the original. But do you like the Cash remix more than the modern remix or vice versa?
Honestly, I could not tell you what either of them sound like
Okay,
apart from each other, just off the top of my head. I think I like the modern version better,
I like the
though.
modern one more. Yeah.
So if I had to score Sonic X Shadow Generations, like if I was reviewing this for my last job, I think I would have given it an 8.5 out of 10.
I think that's where I am too so
And
far.
as of this recording, it is currently sitting at an 80 on Metacritic. And it's available now on Switch as well as every other major platform. Any closing thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations?
Is this your favorite Sonic game now?
No.
Okay.
We will talk about my favorite Sonic game in the final segment of this show.
Okay.
Is it yours?
Sonic Generations was.
I mean, Generations might crack my top 5, maybe.
Yeah. Look, it's. I have to see how Shadow Generations pans out. But right now it's sitting pretty up there. If not, it's in the top 3.
Okay. What is your top 3? We're going to get into a top 5 list later on, but before we move on, give me your top 3 Sonic games of all time.
Oh man, that's tough. I would probably.
I'm sorry to inflict such pain on you.
Yeah, it's you really caught me off guard. This one probably.
Okay.
I mean, the base Sonic Generations at least, and so I can already say that the remake is up there. Sonic Adventure 2.
All right.
Yeah. And probably Sonic Frontiers.
Solid list. All modern stuff. I guess you're not as much of a classic guy anyway.
No, like look, I got as far, I just kept on dying in the classic games. And I only owned Sonic 2 and then Sonic and Knuckles. And I just never got around to playing the other ones.
Okay.
I think I tried them out, but like I couldn't like fall in love with them because I just kept dying in them.
Somebody needs to gift this man Sonic Origins.
Yeah.
Is it on sale right now? That's what I'm looking up right now.
I will take care of that. I did see that. Yeah.
It is on sale right now.
Is it included in PS Plus?
I don't know. I could not tell you, but it's on sale on Switch right now. If you do Digital Origins Plus,
yeah,
it's 50% off. Currently $20. That includes the extra playable character and the Game Gear games and everything.
I'll get it right after this call, and I won't play it immediately because I've got a ton of other.
Yes, understandable to be honest. But before we move on to our final segment of this show, there are a couple other new releases that I wanted to mention. One of which I've been playing. So the game is called Slay the Princess. It came out on PC last year.
Oh, wait, sorry. The top 5 Sonic levels.
We'll do that. We'll get to that at the end.
Sorry. I cut you off.
So, Slay the Princess came out on PC last year, and when I went to the Game Awards, I had multiple people telling me it was one of the most overlooked games of 2023. And I've been meaning to check it out, but it was only on Steam to this point. I didn't want to play it on Steam. And it finally came to consoles this week through a definitive edition called Slay the Princess: The Pristine Cut. And it's basically a text-based visual novel adventure horror game where all you're doing is selecting actions and dialogue options. It's, hand drawn, still animation basically, and you have this very short scene that plays out. I'm not going to really spoil much, as I'm going to avoid as much as I can. But here's how like my beginning played out. Basically, like I enter, and it's like you're in this wood, like the woods, right? And there's a narrator, and the narrator's like, "Hey, like you're here. Your job is to go and follow this path, go into this cabin. You'll go to the basement. There's a princess that is chained to a wall. Your job is to kill her." And you have the reactions that you can choose. You're like, "All right, on it," or like, wait, what? Like that doesn't seem like a good thing to do."
Right.
All the way up to like, "No, screw this, I'm out." And through a variety of different interactions, based on how you do, like how you approach it, it's going to play out differently. And I'm asking all these questions, like, "What do you mean?" Like, what? And they're like, "Oh, well, like if you don't kill her, she's going to end the world." And you're like, "What does that even mean? Like, tell me more details. Like, how is she going to do it?" It's like, "I can't do that." And it's just like, what? And so like it's this kind of like mind trickery thing happening in your head of like trying to figure out like what's going on. It's very mysterious. So I'm not, again, very minor spoilers here, but like this is for the very beginning of the game. So I go down and I'm talking to the princess, and she's like explaining like what's going on, and like she's confused, and she's like, seems kind of like a standard like damsel in distress princess kind of thing. So it's like, all right, well, I guess I should kill you because like I'm told that like the world is going to end if I don't. And so I go to do it, and she like fights back and ends up killing me as well.
As
And
you
like
do.
we both die. And like as you're laying there, like the narrator's narrating all of this. And if you try to go against what the narrator's telling you you're supposed to do, he will argue with you actually. So it's like
Whoa.
breaking of
Okay.
the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And as like your eyes are closing, the princess just looks over at you and goes, "Oh, you think this is the end?" And like laughs. And then it says chapter 2, and you're right back in the woods. And it's like, oh man. And like the narrator's like, "Oh, your job is to kill this princess." And you're like, "Wait, we were just here." And it's like, "No, you weren't. Like, I've never met you before." And it's like this whole thing of like, what is going on? What is this loop? And like as you go, like things change as you play through the same scenario over and over again. It is so cool. I'm not all the way through my playthrough yet, but it says it's a pretty short experience. I am absolutely in love with this game,
What
and
are you playing it on?
I'm playing it on Xbox,
Okay.
but it's on everything pretty much now. But yeah, it drew me in immediately with that intriguing mystery, and it is absolutely bonkers in so many ways. And it's, to be honest, probably my favorite game that we've talked about this episode so far.
No.
In my top 10 of this year, Sonic X Shadow Generations barely cracks the top 10.
Interesting.
Slay the Princess, for what it is like probably top 6, top 7.
But it came out in 2023.
But this version
I
is an
see.
all new version. I don't know what they added to this definitive version. And it's also, I mean, if you want to get technical, Sonic X Shadow Generations, most of that game came out in 2011.
Yeah,
So
I realized it right before you said it.
So yeah, that game is out now. It gets a rousing endorsement from me. Again, with the disclaimer, I've not played it all the way through to the end, like a full playthrough. But I'm excited. Like everything that you do seems to impact like how the story plays out, and like they react, and like if you don't do things like the way these different characters. Oh, and like each time, like when you come back, there's actually a different like inner monologue. Like it starts off as like you have the hero, and that is your inner monologue. And then like when I got killed in the first time, and it's all based on your choices. Like your first loop might not play out that way. But when I did, I came back because I was like so defiant against this guy. I then had the hero voice and the stubborn voice, and they were like arguing with each other as I was going throughout, like, what should I do? Like the hero was like, "Oh, well, we should obviously set her free and let her go." And then the stubborn voice was like, "Oh no, we should not listen to this guy." And then like I did a different thing, and then another voice came out and like started
man.
like, so it's like these conflicting personalities within you that are also trying to influence your decision.
Did you know that there is a $200 collector's edition of
I
this
did,
game?
yeah. There's a statue of, I think, the princess.
Interesting. I'm not going to get that, but I will check out this game. This actually sounds something to derail my backlog for.
And according to How Long to Beat, it is only a 3-hour
3-hour
experience.
game, yeah.
So you are set if like you're like worried about your backlog.
Look, you're talking to somebody who will own 3 copies of Sonic X Shadow Generations like a psychopath, and so I am happy to. How much is this game? Like $20?
It's currently on sale 10% off. Normally $18. It's $16.19 on the eShop.
Sold.
The Pristine Cut, I'm trying to see what exactly it does add. 3 brand new chapters replete with mysteries and consequences. Never before seen princesses who will all murder you without a second thought.
Oh, geez, this is right up my alley. Paying more money for more consequences than women that want to murder me. That sounds great.
Expansions to familiar routes, over 35% more content overall, all filled with great opportunities. This, and a new ending. Track your progress, cherish your memories, relive your exploits, and uncover deeply hidden secrets with new gallery feature. Over 1,200 new hand-penciled frames, hand-illustrated by Abby Howard. Over 2,500 new lines of dialogue, new dialogue. I think they typoed here. New lines of fully voiced dialogue by the impeccable Jonathan Sims and Nicole Goodnight. So it seems like a pretty substantial expansion over the original. If you played the original,
out. Yeah.
So yeah, less than $20 on the. It's like a bonus eShop gem because we're not doing an actual eShop gem of the week this week. But before we wrap up this main segment, I did want to talk about one game that I've not quite gotten my hands on yet, but I watched a couple of reviews of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed. So this is a game that takes place between the movie that came out a couple of years ago and the announced second movie in that series. So we knew it was going to be kind of like an action platforming style of game. But what we didn't know is it has like kind of like Persona Light style social scenes.
Wait, are you serious?
Yes. So like have you seen the movie that came out a couple years ago?
I didn't get a chance to see the movie, but like its art style was like right up my alley, and I've always had it like queued up on my Apple TV.
You should watch it. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very entertaining. But yeah, like you can meet up and it has a day and nighttime calendar system. So like you can choose who you want to hang out with. And then each turtle has different friends that they meet up with. And you develop friendships with these characters.
No.
And you also have a deadline for when you need to get through your mission. And, you know, you can be like, oh, well, I'm going to go complete this mission. Or no, I'm going to go hang out with this person. Like I'm going to play as Raph and go hang out with this person at the swimming pool or whatever. And
you just blew my mind into smithereens. Like, This sounds like a Benny game.
Look at some like videos on YouTube.
I just saw like the action parts. I didn't realize that
they didn't advertise that at all. They didn't advertise the social parts at all. And it's not anything like even as in depth as Persona. Like there's no like bonds or anything like that. But like there are these scenes where like you have these heartfelt moments of like character development.
Okay.
The unfortunate part is based on these reviews. I read the one on NintendoLife.com and I watched Retro Rebound on YouTube, his review of it and a couple of others that I found. It does sound like the plot kind of starts to drag in the latter half and the levels themselves are kind of repetitive and the combat sounds like it works pretty well. But it does sound like the game itself overstays its welcome by a little bit. Seeing, middling reviews, but it praises its ambition. It praises kind of like the base combat, but not a ton else. But, it sounds like it would land firmly between the other 2 TMNT games that came out this year, which is wild to say.
Yeah.
So we got Splintered Fate, which was pretty good. And then the absolutely terrible Wrath of the Mutants that also came out this year. But yeah, I'm glad I could inform you about this game. I would say watch the movie before you play this, since it is a continuation of that story.
Right. Okay. Cool.
But that is out this week as well. Ben, we're going to take one final break, and when we get back, we will be celebrating 2 milestone anniversaries, and then also getting a definitive ranking from each of us that is very much Sonic themed. We will be right back. We are back, and it is time for Definitive Ranking, a recurring segment where we take a Nintendo topic and give our own personal top 5 lists. Since the main segment focused primarily on a game where you travel back in time to play through a selection of Sonic's greatest hits levels, Ben, I want to get your top 5 Sonic levels of all time. So start at 5, count it down to 1, give me a quick sentence or two about each.
Sure thing. So I would say Asteroid Coaster. I just felt like it was just such a unique level, and it really played into the entire theme park aspect of Sonic Colors. Yep. Kingdom Valley. I can't describe the emotion that I felt when I first saw footage of Sonic 06, and then how we were all crushed collectively at the same time.
We were crushed 40.
But I feel like seeing it in Shadow Generations restored what it should have looked like.
Yeah.
And so, nevertheless, the original one still holds a special place in my heart, except for the end part where you're running through that water and you always die. Chemical Plant, because my first experience with anxiety ever, that definitely messed me up. But and then Emerald Coast. I mean, Sonic Adventure is just so iconic, and just having that the whale chase after you was so iconic. Emerald Coast was my Mario 64, or Sonic Adventure was my Mario 64, and so seeing having Emerald Coast and seeing just how it sort of influenced other beach levels, I think was just so amazing. And then City Escape. I mean, I've got the Sonic Generations statue for that. You take a look at that level and you can just hear it. I do have 5 quick honorable mentions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Definitive Ranking, a recurring segment where we take a Nintendo topic and give our personal top 10 lists, apparently.
It's actually 6 honorable mentions.
Oh,
sorry. Twinkle Park from Sonic Adventure 1, Emerald Hill from Sonic 2, because that was the very first Sonic level I ever played.
Same.
Crisis City. Flying Battery.
Crisis City is one of my least favorite Sonic levels.
So specifically Crisis City in for Silver's campaign.
Okay.
Because I really liked his powers and when they worked, and the environment that you were doing them in when again it worked.
Yeah.
Sidebar, Shadow's story in Sonic 06 is maybe my favorite Shadow story.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was dude is trying to help the world, and eventually the world will turn on him. And Mephiles offers him a bargaining chip. I know I'm going on a Sonic 06 rant. Deal with it. And he says no, takes off his inhibitor rings, and just speeds right through him as All Hail Shadow by Crush 40 plays. That is sick. I don't care. Whatever.
It seems like Project 06, if you followed that at all, where it's a fan mod that aims to basically fix all the problems with Sonic 06.
Capture what was promised.
Yeah. I have seen YouTubers, Sonic YouTubers say that if this is if they finish this, because it seems like they finished, I think, the Sonic and Shadow campaign levels.
Yes.
And they have finished the Sonic hub world stuff.
Yes.
If they're basically saying if they continue down this path, it might end up being the best Sonic game.
Yeah. Jack Botnick has played some, and he's relayed the same information to me. So, I mean,
because right now, a lot of people consider it one of the worst games of all time, not just worst Sonic game, one of the worst games of all time.
It was, and it was a game that I played in college to sometimes make myself feel better about myself if I was really sad. But it was a bad game, but it was an important moment of gaming history because failures lead to successes.
Mm-hmm. So what are your other honorable mentions?
The other ones were Skydeck and Rooftop Run. And yeah.
Which one's Skydeck from?
Skydeck is from Sonic Adventure.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen something for that in Generations, because then you get the Egg Fleet in Generations, right? From Sonic Adventure 1. That could have been really cool to see.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, here are my 5.
Yeah.
I have Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure. The the whale scene blew my freaking mind when it happened, and they tried to recreate it in Sonic 06 and it just wasn't as good.
Nope.
But Emerald Coast was just fantastic. It showcased what we have now come to know as modern Sonic. Like, the first level that you play in that game is Emerald Coast, and it doesn't disappoint. It's like, okay, I see the potential of like how this could be amazing.
Right. You felt transported to that beach. Like, it just, the music, like, all of it hits.
Yeah. Number 4, Chemical Plant Zone from Sonic 2 for all the reasons you listed, but also like the music slaps, the level design is fantastic. I could do without the water, but like I get that
Yeah,
that is
me
like it's an important like reminder that like there is risk reward in success.
So
in
do you like
this,
the Generations for both classic and modern
I think
reinterpretation for it?
the remixes in the music, you mean?
No,
Oh,
well,
just
and
the level
games.
design. I think the best remake of, because it's also in Forces and Mania as well, right? Both of them are in,
Yeah, it has sections of it,
and
in
then it's
Forces,
also in
yeah.
Frontiers if you count the cyberspace
Yes,
levels.
that's true.
Because
Yeah,
the cyberspace levels in Frontiers are Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Sky Sanctuary, right? Those are the 3 themes that they have.
there's a city one.
Yeah, I don't know which one it would be, but
It's kind of a mix of City Escape with a bunch of other city things. But yes,
so I think the best representation of Chemical Plant is in Mania.
okay.
I think that's the best Chemical Plant since the original, and I would even say maybe it's better than the original.
Why?
I think they alleviated some of the annoyances that came with, oh, you missed jumping on this one moving platform, you're going to drown to death now.
Right.
They give you ways to get back up there. There's an incredible like boss battle that I don't want to spoil on here, even though it's a almost an 8-year-old game at this point.
I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, an
Yeah.
unconventional boss battle that's like I played it before like it was, or I played it shortly after it was announced. No, it was right around the time it was announced. I got to play that version of Chemical Plant, and when I saw that happen, I was like, "What?" Like,
yeah.
I was at Sonic Team's HQ here in the US.
I can't believe they were allowed to do that.
Well, it was for a the boss battle thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, Chemical Plant Zone from Sonic 2, Rooftop Run from Sonic Unleashed. It's incredibly well laid out. It's
the daytime one.
Yes, yeah, not the werehog.
Yeah.
But like the part where the momentum is so perfect.
Yes.
It's even better in Generations.
Yeah.
But the way that like, you always have forward momentum. The Generations part is better because there's that one curve, and if you miss that curve, you go flying off to your death a lot of the time in Unleashed. Whereas if you miss the curve, and there is a rail that you can grind on if you miss the curve in Unleashed, but it by default puts you on the rail if you miss the curve in Generations. And then also they made it so that if you fall, it's not instant death in Generations. Instead, you go down to a punish route, which makes it so much more palatable. And then there's that one scene where you go like up on the rail and then you come down. It's like a spiral as you see the city like getting closer.
Yep.
That is just one of the greatest scenes in any Sonic game.
I remember when like that stuff was kind of leaked. Like, I think that there was like an E3 press kit that was leaked for Xbox, and it sort of showed like that this level is orange roofs. And I remember that being one of the assets, and I was like, E3, get here now. Like, I can't wait to see this.
Yeah. So, I mean, technically, I would say the Sonic Generations version of Rooftop Run, but if we're just going with the OGs, because, I could also say the Sonic Mania version of Chemical Plant, but I'm going to go with the OGs here. I'm going to say Sonic Unleashed Rooftop Run for number 3. Number 2, Hydra City or Hydrocity from Sonic 3. It showed that water levels can actually be good. I never thought in my life that a water level in a Sonic game would be one of my favorite games, but the more I thought about it, the music is phenomenal, and it's maybe the best water level in platforming history.
Have you ever heard of OC Remix?
Don't think so.
OC Remix is like it's overclocked remix. They do a bunch of video game remixes and they make them all free and stuff. There's this amazing remix of Hydrocity or Hydrocity. I will send it to you. It's incredible. They did an entire album for Sonic and Knuckles.
That's awesome. T. Lopes also does a great remix of it too. And then number 1, City Escape.
I mean, come on, right?
The thing that surprised me the most about my list is that it's more modern than classic, which is
Yeah.
wild because I'm definitely a classic Sonic guy, ride or die. But like, and modern, I actually considered one of the honorable mentions. I do want to shout out. I
Oh, so
forget.
you had an honorable mention
Well,
list.
one that almost made the list that I
Okay.
was trying to think unconventionally. It's one of the cyberspace levels in Frontiers.
Flowing?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so good. And I played that obsessively to get the S
Yes,
rank, and I
right.
eventually did. But it was
Yes.
one of the hardest challenges I've done in a Sonic game, getting that S rank.
But it's so rewarding, and like you get it under that 45 seconds. I think that
Something
was
like
the
that.
like that is an insane number, and like you hit that, like you feel that dopamine rush, like it's just, and the music slaps, like it's
The
just,
music is one of my favorite vocal tracks in all of Sonic.
yes.
It's incredible. But yeah, definitive ranking in the can. We have 2 quick anniversaries I wanted to shout out before we close out this extremely jam-packed episode. Ben, game that you love, I know from our discussions, Pokemon Yellow
Yeah,
turned 25 this week.
that's
Uh,
crazy.
so this released 2 years after Red and Green launched in Japan, and just 1 year after Red and Blue arrived in the US.
Hidden memory.
Okay.
Do you want me to hit you with it, or do you want to?
So yeah, go for it.
Okay. Hidden memory. I remember being with my mom and my sister and my little brother in Toys R Us, and we were just like looking like just around, and I saw that there was a game called Pokemon Yellow, and I had already played Pokemon Blue and Red obsessively, and I was like, didn't know that this existed because the internet was like not like nobody really had it widespread yet, and so I was just like going into a store and finding out about a video game, you don't have that anymore.
No.
And so I will hold on to that memory until the day I died. I picked up that game and I was like, "Can I get this?" And my mom was like, "Yes, you can get that." And then I picked up a figurine of Jessie from Team Rocket and I was like, "Can I get this?" And she's like, "No."
So the interesting thing about Pokemon Yellow is originally Clefairy was going to be the mascot of the Pokemon franchise,
Yeah.
and then Pikachu's popularity, I would say primarily driven by the anime, caught Game Freak off guard, and they wanted to create a more definitive version of Red and Blue or Green, while also capitalizing on the newfound popularity of Pikachu and the Pokemon anime. And the result was Pokemon Yellow Special Pikachu Edition. And Yellow is, largely the same as Red and Blue, but it removes Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur as your starter options and only lets you choose Pikachu. And then your rival, instead of doing the rock, paper, scissors choosing of like the Pokemon that's strong against you, he gets Eevee.
Yes.
And then, like in the show, Pikachu doesn't go in his Pokeball, and instead he follows you around out in the field. You can turn and talk to him, and you can see what his mood is, and you make him happy or sad depending on how you treat him and how you battle with him, which added another element. So, like, if you level him up a lot, he'll be really happy, or if he faints a lot, he'll be like really sad.
If you try to use a Thunderstone, that's not going to work.
And then, unlike Red and Blue, you can actually get all 3 of the original starters through quests that are similar to how Ash got all 3 of them in the anime. And it also swaps out the Team Rocket grunts for encounters with Jessie and James from the anime. And there's a special minigame called Pikachu's Beach, which could only be accessed by connecting your Yellow with Pokemon Stadium on N64. Or you could win a contest, which I think that fewer people did it that way.
Yes.
And several of the sprites were also updated to either look better or look more like the cartoon as well.
Color was also improved a little.
Yes. Yeah. So the game launched in the US on October 19th, 1999, alongside a special Pikachu-themed Game Boy Color. And it also was all coinciding with Pokemon the first movie hitting theaters a few weeks later.
They did it all right.
The synergy, baby.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's the highest grossing entertainment franchise of all time.
Yes. By the way, Clefairy is the mascot in the Pokemon manga for Koro Koro magazine.
I have that manga.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was interesting that their partner Pokemon is Clefairy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting relic of that. And then in 2018, we got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which were remakes of Pokemon Yellow for Switch. Any other memories of Pokemon Yellow before we move on to the final little thing we're going to talk about here?
Nothing major. I mean, it was just like, I remember that there were different ways for Gary's or Blue's or whatever, the rivals, Eevee to evolve. Like if you battle him at like one location, it evolves into Flareon, if different, Vaporeon, etc., etc. But yeah, it was just it was an amazing game, and I just had so many great memories of playing it.
Yeah, I still remember I knew about it because I was Pokemon obsessed at that point in my life, and
Yeah.
I dragged my mom to take me to Best Buy.
But how
and
did you
grab it.
know about it?
I'm
Through a
sure I read
magazine?
about it in a gaming magazine, or like
Okay.
maybe while I was watching the Pokemon anime, they probably had a commercial on for it or something like that.
So the magazine is, I think, how I ended up learning about Gold and Silver.
Okay. Well, this was only a year before Gold and Silver as well.
Yeah. I think it was Game Pro magazine. Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I was reading Game Pro, EGM, Nintendo Power.
Yeah.
Occasional Game Informer back then as well. So, like, it was probably one of those that I saw it. I want to say Game Informer was probably the most likely candidate. No, wait, no. Game Informer, the time they put Pikachu on the cover was for Smash Brothers 64. I don't think they did. I would look it up, but they nuked our website, so I can't.
Let me ask you this: is Pokemon Yellow like more your favorite than Red and Blue and all that?
I think Fire Red and Leaf Green are my favorite telling of that story.
Kanto? Okay.
Yeah. It should be Pikachu and Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but I don't like the wild Pokemon encounters. Everything else I love. I love I love that like they did all these things to like modernize it, and it should be my favorite. If they could just put out a patch that
but you're not doing battles. You're not doing battles against Pokemon.
Not against wild Pokemon.
Not against wild Pokemon.
Trainer Pokemon are the same.
Yes, but I like that we're doing wild battles in the original games.
I agree.
I didn't like the lack of wild battles in Let's Go.
That's my biggest problem with that game. But everything else I adore.
Yeah.
But Ben, how fitting that we end this episode on a Sonic note. Sonic and Knuckles turned 30 years old this week. This was originally advertised as the follow-up to Sonic 3, which had hit earlier in 1994, but in actuality, it was the second half of the game. So this is pretty well known, but Sega had struck a marketing deal with McDonald's for its Happy Meal toys, and it needed to get a game out in the early parts of 1994 to meet like this contract they had signed. But Sonic 3 was planned to be this massive and ambitious game. It wasn't finished yet. And on top of that, the ROM cartridges for the Genesis weren't big enough at the time to house the entire game that they planned. So the solution they came up was to split it in a place where it made sense and it feels natural. So after you defeat Dr. Robotnik at Launch Base Zone, it's billed as the end of Sonic 3, but in actuality, it's just the midway point of the story. So Sonic 3 lets you play as Sonic and Tails, but Sonic and Knuckles got rid of the Tails option in favor of Sonic or Knuckles. And then depending on which character you choose, it was a different path through these levels. So the real magic came with how Sega branched it together as one seamless adventure. Yeah. So Sonic and Knuckles had the physical cartridge had this little flip top lid, which you could move back to reveal a cartridge slot, an extra cartridge slot for your Genesis. This was called lock-on technology, which let you stack another game on top of it to differing effects. Most of the games, including Sonic 1, if you stacked them on the Sonic and Knuckles, you pretty much just played almost infinite Blue Sphere bonus stages.
Yeah.
But Sonic and 2 and Sonic 3 had special effects. So Sonic 2 allowed you to play through the game as Knuckles, which was a fun bonus.
Yep.
Sonic 1 was originally planned to have this feature as well, but the team didn't like how the level design and Knuckles' abilities meshed, so they just got rid of that and canceled that plan. But the main event was connecting Sonic 3. So this gave you Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which is the best of both of those games because you could play through the entire adventure. Angel Island, the first level in Sonic 3, all the way through to Death Egg Zone and the subsequent Doomsday Zone from Sonic and Knuckles. As Sonic, Tails, Sonic and Tails, or Knuckles. And just like in Sonic and Knuckles, if you play through Sonic 3 as Knuckles, he goes through the levels in a completely different route a lot of the times, and he faces different bosses. And it actually, the story of Knuckles takes place after Sonic and Tails' adventure.
Yeah.
And this version also added the Super Emeralds, which allowed Sonic to change into Hypersonic if he collected all 7 Chaos Emeralds and then collected all 7 Super Emeralds,
Which we will never see again.
I've asked Izuka about that, and he
Yeah.
said they're in a different dimension now.
Ah, yes.
The Super Emeralds.
Of course they are.
Once you beat the game, you could choose your level on that save file, which was super cool if you wanted to go back and play. And it gave you custom artwork depending on how complete you did it. So if you got all the Sonic or all the Chaos Emeralds, it would give you a Super Sonic image. If you got all the Super Emeralds, it was and beat like all the levels, you got like this 3D image, which was like the most graphically advanced thing I'd ever seen in my life at that point, of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, like 3D models on like this placard. But Sonic and Knuckles arrived on Genesis on October 18th, 1994, has been released a ton of times, which has proven challenging at times since Sonic 3 was ignored for a lot of the time, reportedly due to the music licensing issues. So it felt like Sega was kind of only releasing half of the experience in a lot of these more recent compilations and releases. But thankfully, Sega seems to have fixed that problem through the Sonic Origins collection, which came out in 2022, which replaced a lot of the music in several of the zones in Sonic 3.
But doesn't the music, isn't it not great?
Some people like it a lot. I do not like it a lot.
Okay.
But most of the music is still intact. But like Ice Cap Zone, Launch Base Zone, and Carnival Night Zone are all very different music pieces. It used to be pretty unanimous among Sonic fans that Sonic 2 is the greatest game in the series history. And then it seemed like folks started saying that Sonic Mania was the greatest game in Sonic history. But now I feel like people are joining me in my it's always been this consistent opinion since I played this game that Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the greatest Sonic game ever created. I think that has kind of become the prevailing sentiment at this point. Ben, I know you've not played Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but what do you think is the best 2D Sonic game? Because the ones you gave me are 3D.
Yeah, I think the best 2D Sonic game is probably Mania.
Okay.
I mean, but you only get that after you learn from everything else,
True. But that's video games in general.
That's video games in general. But Sonic and Knuckles does hold Sonic 2 and Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic 2 and Knuckles do hold a very special place in my heart.
You got to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles and see the brilliance.
I 100% will. I wish that I could play it with the original music though, because the Ice Cap Zone music does slap. Mm-hmm. And but I will for sure check those out. But yeah, Sonic 2 and Sonic 2 and Knuckles hold very special places in my heart.
So I was trying to look up like what the name of the actual song that the Ice Cap Zone takes the synth line from. Yeah. It's Hard Times by the Jetsons with a Z.
Oh.
You can find that on your streaming services. And you can hear like, oh yeah, this is absolutely the Ice Cap Zone. Like they took this synth line from this B-side.
So wait, then for every song that's not included, did they take something from something? Is that the issue?
Well, because Carnival Night also is very similar to a Michael Jackson song. And then Launch Base, it has Michael Jackson's voice sampled. And then on top of that, what podcast was I listening to where it seems like I think it was Retronauts. They made the connection that the composer or like the guy who was in charge of composing the Launch Base Zone song, there's a part of that song that goes doot, 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 doot. And if you listen to the soundtrack of the Ninja Turtles, the first live action Ninja Turtles movie, there is a song on that soundtrack that has that exact same line, and it's composed by the same guy.
That's crazy.
So I think there's a double whammy there. That maybe there was some stuff there. Like that Retronauts, shout out to them for I think they were the ones that found that connective tissue. But yeah, there's a lot of music problems, and I've tried to get Sega to comment on it over the years. And
they're not going to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, they've said they can't provide comment. But yeah, before we wrap up, for those who are not $10 patrons and are wondering what is happening on the other side of the fence, over on All Things Gamers this week, Kate Sanchez joined me to give her reviews of Unknown 9 Awakening and Netflix's Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. We also talked some Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Venom: The Last Dance, and Smile 2. It is, after all, spooky season. And again, All Things Gamers is the exclusive weekly podcast for those who support my Patreon at the $10 level. But that wraps up this episode of All Things Nintendo. Ben, thank you so much for joining me for this and, gushing over all of our love for Sonic.
Oh, don't say gushing over Sonic. That's not great.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, the Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, but you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on social media at Brian P. Shea. Coincidentally, at Brian P. Shea is also my YouTube channel, and if you would subscribe to it, it would mean a lot. Ben, where can people find you online?
Never on your podcast again after what I just said, but you can find me. You can find me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called at Dr. Ben MD. Usually just roam around on there. You can also, I guess, find me on Instagram, Ben Richlin MD, and podcasting with you.
Yeah,
it's a ton of fun. Thank you so much for having me. Can't thank you enough. This is, I've been looking forward to this one in particular.
Yeah, well, I've appreciated you joining me, but that is our show for this week. Thank you again to everyone for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we wrap up this episode of the All Things Nintendo podcast, I just wanted to give a special shout out to the $10 members of the All Things Nintendo Patreon page. Aaron Smith, Abdullah, Adam Scott, Elena R., Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richlin, Brooke Obscura, Chain Whippin, Chaps My Ass, Chris Callie, Colton Breadlow, Dan Norman, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jackal, Jacob Naheen, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joseph Jury, Joshua Duproy, Justin Childress, Cody Gibson, Creeper 207, Light Pole, Marshall Thompson, Megan S., Michael Anderson, Nintendo 101, Pat Roberts, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Scott Matthews, Sir Phobos, Smithy Poo, Tux DC, Wham Bam Sam the Gaming Man, Zach Marcus, Zachary Pliggy, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Truly, thank you so much for your support of this podcast. It means so much to me, and I could not do this without you.